Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going today?
We are already off our game. We hadn't even hit record. We are meeting out in kind of the Worthington area, which is kind of a mutually convenient area. And moments before we hit record, the Wednesday at noon siren, tornado siren test went off, and it was like, if this was really a Buckeye Weekly podcast, we would have hit record, been like 2 minutes in, had that go off, and gone, we'll just keep going.
Well, in fairness, I was a little bit late, which is also kind of on brand.
Yeah, pretty much. Although we did prepare for this show, which is, it's a brave new world.
Yeah, but prepare in quotes. There is a rundown. There is. And we have both looked at it. I looked at it when I wrote it, and you looked at it a little bit ago when you read it.
Yeah.
So, prepared.
2020, it is going to be a crazy, wild new year for this podcast.
Mamba mentality.
Absolutely.
There you go. There is news this week, though.
Yes, there is.
Happened on Tuesday with Cameron Martinez reaffirming his commitment. But before that, it was Kerry Combs tweeting a bunch of boom with some hashtags and some graphics and some fireballs. And so you knew something happened. And then you gotta wait, what was it? And we talked last week, on last week's show, I think we said he was visiting Cameron Martinez at that moment or that day. He was in Virginia, headed for Virginia yesterday. So I was like, whoa, maybe he went and got 5-star Tony Grimes right off the bat. That's how Kerry Combs operates. But no, instead they're just finishing up 2020 and it was only Cameron Martinez, Tom.
Yes, only. And, just, to touch on Kerry Combs and his hashtag game, which did not lose. He has not lost a step in the hashtag game. The Cameron Martinez was hashtag, man, I can't believe how good it feels to be doing that again. ! Which is not included in the hashtag. Hashtag, only the beginning. Hashtag, remember, it's not a good day, but a great day. Those are, I bet if you click on them, there is not a whole lot of prior returns for people using those particular hashtags.
That's
but
true. Now
that Kerry Combs is back, I think you're gonna see more of them.
Maybe we should start using those.
Just hashtag all of our just random stories.
Yeah. With the Kerry Combs hashtags. So Cameron Martinez, an option quarterback in Muskegon, Michigan.
Correct.
Who reminds me of Jalen Marshall. Not quite as big, maybe he's listed at 5'11", 183, which I'm guessing he's got to be a little heavier than that because he takes a pounding running that triple option. But projecting as a defensive back, as a safety, for me though, I'm wondering, for one, we've talked about him before, his senior highlights of just the touchdowns is 9 minutes long. Now granted, the first 25 seconds of the video are his accolades of all of the state awards he's won. So it's not exactly 9 minutes of touchdowns. It's more like 8:40.
Here are 20 seconds of all the awards I won because I scored 10 minutes and 40 seconds worth of touchdowns in this one season. That seems pretty good. It seems like he might be one of those guys who, if he gets his hands on the ball on an interception, he seems like he probably will know what to do with it to put it in the end zone.
Plus, he's comfortable pitching it.
That's
if
true.
He's about to get tackled,
oh man,
you boom off to Josh Proctor or boom off to Tommy Togiai.
Oh man, now that Robert Landers is gone,
exactly.
Tommy Togiai or Teron Vincent, one of those guys. I definitely need some rumbling, bumbling, and stumbling.
That would be good. I do wonder, Tom, and it might sound crazy with all of these long touchdowns that he has. I kind of question his speed in that we don't know how fast he is other than he's faster than everybody else. He has no camp times or anything like that. So I wonder exactly how fast he is. And then yes, he projects at safety, but are we talking the slot safety, the Shaun Wade? Because he's quick and shifty as opposed to, does he have the range to be the deep safety? So I guess I definitely wonder how fast he is, but then I look at him, where is he going to be? I would kind of project him more in the Shaun Wade thing than the Josh Proctor, Jordan Fuller area.
Yeah, that's where I landed as well, because it seems like they need one of those guys in this class. And when you have the quickness and elusiveness on offense, that means you at least have the quickness to presumably stay up with guys who are quick and elusive, like slot corners would be. And, his size is not, based on the size of most slot receivers, that won't be an issue. That seems like a more natural place for him to fit. But either way, there's going to be some development there, because that's not a position where I think he played some in high school, but not, that was obviously not his main position. He was not playing Iron Man football last year when he was their starting quarterback. So there's going to be some development there, but that does seem like the spot where, he becomes that Shaun Wade slot corner in 2 years, 3 years, rather than the Jordan Fuller kind of deep safety role.
Because you'll be losing Shaun Wade and Amir Reep. Well, Shaun Wade's no longer the slot corner anyway, but you'll be like, if it's Amir Reep, who, I don't know. I mean, that's who went in when Shaun Wade was not there.
Yeah, he was the top backup for Shaun Wade as of the Michigan game. So.
And this will be his 4th season. He's never redshirted. Then Cameron Martinez will have a shot maybe in 2021, but he won't be alone, obviously, and there's going to be some other guys. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves, and how I'm interested to see how it does this year, because nobody else is Shaun Wade, and we'll talk about that more. But I think I don't know if that's the biggest question this year, but it's one of the bigger ones.
It's one of them. I mean, the defensive backs in general are probably the biggest question. I mean, Ryan Day talked about running back being one of his kind of
what does he know?
Big question marks. But yeah, on the defensive side of the ball, yeah, I mean, I think that defensive backfield is probably the first
both
thing.
Both of those, like the deep safety, the slot. And I'm not too concerned about the corners, because you'll have the outside corners, you'll have Shaun Wade and either Sevyn Banks or Cameron Brown. I expect to be fine. But it's those two inside defensive backs that are going to be, I don't want to say make or break this defense, but could certainly break them if they are not of quality.
Well, I mean, it made that defensive backfield made the 2019 defense what it was, because they just kind of stuck those guys out there, and Jordan Fuller didn't let anyone get behind him, and you didn't have guys completing long passes on the corners, and that freed up the front seven to go be the front seven. And you saw the results. That was one of the best Ohio State defenses I think I've ever seen. And you've also you don't have to also go back very far to see what it looks like when a defensive backfield potentially breaks the Ohio State defense, and what that can look like. So yeah, it's not necessarily completely make or break, but it's that is, I think, the thing that will, where they fall on the scale from 2018 to 2019, like where they fall on that scale is going to go about as far as anything else in determining how good this defense really can be.
I do have more faith they'll be closer to 2019 than 2018, because there is no Greg Schiano. That's kind of that's definitely where I am. Him not employing that defense, I think, is going to help. But again, you have that one high safety. If he's not ready, I mean, you're asking him to cover a lot of ground against the run and against the pass. And if he can't do it, then you could be, and Tom, we're going to eventually do a defensive preview in the coming weeks. But like, if that guy can't handle it, then you may be in as bad a situation as Schiano's defense, because you're asking guys to do stuff they can't do.
Right. And then you have to change what you're doing, because you can't, I don't think the idea that don't give up big plays is the top priority. I don't think that's a concept that is going to have left the program when Jeff Hafley left. So, if the deep safety position, I think the assumption is it's probably Josh Proctor's spot to lose. If that deep safety position, whether it's Proctor or someone else, can't prevent those big plays in the way that Jordan Fuller did, then, one high being Ryan Day's preference or not, like, you're going to have to change that. If that's not working, you can't just keep banging your head against the wall with it.
You got to change things like Urban Meyer did when he won a national title with Chris Leak, and then use Tim Tebow to get that quarterback run game that he prefers. You work with what you have. So Cameron Martinez, the number 323 prospect overall in the 24/7 composite.
Sounds right.
And that is that final now? Because 24/7's own rankings went final yesterday on Tuesday. I don't know if everybody else's rankings are finalized yet.
I believe that everything's finalized at this point. So, ESPN, ESPN will start scouting people north of the Mason-Dixon line sometime in the next week or so. So that may change, but
right after signing day, yes. So yeah, let's talk about the final 24/7 rankings because, and this is just 24/7's own rankings, which then get added into the composite. But quarterback CJ Stroud and receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba both bumped up to 5-star prospects. Smith and Jigba is now the number 15 player overall, the number 2 wide receiver, giving Ohio State the top 2 receivers in the class with Julian Fleming. And Tom, the last time Ohio State did that?
Was it Kenyon Rambo and Reggie Germany?
I was going to say it's probably never, but then it is Tom Lemming, who I have a Google Doc of his like the last 20 or 30 years. I think he had Rambo 2 and Reggie Germany 4.
Okay.
So, but that would have been my guess as well. Or, no, not David Boston and Michael Wiley, because Wiley was considered, I think, a running back at that point. And David Boston was maybe a top 10 receiver, nothing like a 5-star guy. So yeah, Brian Hartline, Brian Robisky? No.
No, probably not.
No. So yeah, there was 2 at the top. And you watch what Jackson Smith and Jigba did, and you're like, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't he be a 5-star guy?
Yeah, the reaction when he became a 5-star, and he's a 5-star not just in the 247 rankings, but also now in the composite as well. The reaction there was like, what the heck took you so long? Did you not see him play this year? Like when you are the offensive player of the year in the state of Texas, like, yeah, that's probably a pretty good indication. Even if you knew nothing other than his stats and that, like, that should be a pretty good indication. This guy's probably one of the best players in the country.
I just imagine like the recruiting folks are like with the old-timey counting machine calculator, like punching up all the numbers, and that's what took so long.
Yeah.
They got the green hat on with the visor, they're, punching up all these numbers, and then finally, like, holy crap, these, after they get them all added, this guy should be a 5-star. And so he is, and I look forward to seeing this spring with all 4 of those guys, seeing where they line up, how they line up. Ohio State's history of signing 5-star quarterbacks out of high school, Tom, it's not a big history.
Long and storied.
There's certainly a long story with the one guy, and that's Terrell Pryor. Justin Zwick was a 5-star for a little bit. Mark Garcia may have been a 5-star JUCO, but that's obviously not out of high school. Then, of course, Justin Fields transferred in from Georgia. Do you remember any others? Like David Priestley and those guys were just, high-ish 4 stars, but nothing like Art Schleister probably.
Art Schleister would have been a 5-star if they had stars
I don't know what they had back then.
But
like just the internet era going back to 2002, it's Terrell Pryor.
Yeah.
Braxton Miller.
Was Braxton Miller a 5-star?
Well, in one of them, maybe Scout, which is now defunct. I don't know if he finished. Tom, I'll vamp while you look it up. I know he was at one point. I don't know that you can get Scout rankings anymore, but I believe he was a 5-star in Scout.
He is a 5-star in the 247 composite. 29th overall, number 2 dual threat quarterback.
So Terrell Pryor and Braxton Miller, neither of whom got to play a senior season as an Ohio State quarterback, neither of their own volition.
Mm-hmm. But both of those were careers that turned out pretty darn well. Mm. If CJ Stroud turns out to put up the modern equivalent, the era adjusted numbers that Terrell Pryor did under Jim Tressel, without perhaps some of the off-field accoutrement that accompanied it, then I think that would probably be viewed as a pretty big win. And the interesting thing is you look back at Zwick, and Zwick finished ranked 40th overall in Rivals in 2002. And, and they also signed a second quarterback in that class. who was, I believe, if I remember correctly, literally the lowest ranked prospect in that entire class out of their 25 guys. That boy's name he grew up to be Troy Smith. So that worked out okay. So, it is not a guarantee, but, as with everything in recruiting, the numbers are not, completely 100% a guarantee, but there's a fairly strong correlation between higher recruiting rankings and higher production at the collegiate level. So, anytime you can add 5 stars, that's generally a good thing, because these guys are getting seen by more and more people now. The film is more available now. There's more of a, developed camp circuit that these guys have been on. Guys have at least seen them throw in person, even if it's just in shorts. You've seen it in, more of these evaluators have seen it in person. So that is all stuff that trends towards, these recruiting rankings mean more now than they probably did back in the Justin Zwick days.
Yeah. And the craziest thing about CJ Stroud is Ohio State got in on him so late. He's ended up the number 2 pro style passer behind the kid that went to Clemson. And, for one, it's crazy that they got 2 really good quarterbacks in Jack Miller and Stroud, but to get in so late and end up, this guy's the number 28 player in the nation. And generally there's 30 to 35, depending on the outlet, 5-star players. And then there's, there's a lot of crossover there, but maybe like if you count Rivals and ESPN and 24/7, maybe 50 to 55 where all 55 total, different guys are 5-star in one or another or one or the other. And so there's not a lot out there. And, it's your rarefied air, but CJ Stroud coming in so late. I believe he won the Elite 11 in July.
Sounds right.
And that's where the Ohio State players saw him and started to get to know him. And then, it's interesting how that all blossoms so quickly. And then he comes in and him and Jack Miller are in for the spring, and it begins right away. I'm sure it began the first day of winter workouts. Yeah,
I would imagine. I mean, we talked about guys, trying to take that leadership role and start, that is an opportunity to be the first guy who's sort of a little bit of a leader in that. And, we have not gotten to talk to any of these guys yet. We'll get to do that next week, which I'm very much looking forward to, just to sort of get a sense for, who they are and how they're adapting and all of that. But you had pointed out the video with the dorm room tour and CJ Stroud already, seemingly taking charge there. So you wonder if that might be a little glimpse into how things are going during those workouts.
So he jumped up 66 spots in the final 24/7 rankings. Cody Simon went up 49 to, like, he's in the top, 60 or so?
Cody Simon is like 97 in the 247.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, Luke Whippler down 61. Ryan Watts jumped up 84 spots. They have him listed as a safety, but that's just, don't worry about that. I think Jeff Okudah was the number 1 safety in 2017. And for some of the outlets,
Tyreek Johnson was rated as a safety, even though he's playing corner for Ohio
State. Right.
Yeah.
Like Okudah was a safety for a long time. Then when Ohio State kept telling people, Ohio State wants me as a corner, Ohio State wants me as a corner, then the services were like, fine, we'll put you at corner.
Was he able to play corner at the college level? I don't remember.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you talk to. Hit or miss. I mean, he had some good moments. I think he dropped a couple interceptions here and there. Had one game where he had 2 interceptions. But I mean, he was okay. I mean, Ohio State didn't keep him around for a 4th year, so that's telling.
Yeah, you should go. Just go pro. Do something else. Like, I mean, if you're projected as the number 3 overall draft pick, like, it's a tough decision, but you're probably going to go pro at that point.
So. But you come back and maybe you could go 2.
Good.
Because, there's always going to be a quarterback.
Unless Chase Young comes back.
Oh, that's true.
See?
It's unfortunate that they should have talked to each other.
Yeah, they should have coordinated that a little better.
Exactly, because they both thought, like, I better go now in case he comes back. And then now they've both screwed themselves.
That's a little inside look at exactly how that decision-making process went. This is
you can't get the agents to talk to each other even?
Well, they're not supposed to have agents until after they make that decision.
Yeah, and they totally don't have agents until the decisions are made.
Clearly.
That's on me.
One thing that I thought was very interesting looking at that pro-style quarterback list, a huge number of the top pro-style quarterbacks in the nation. Jack Miller was the number 10, but ahead of him, there were 5 quarterbacks. 5 of the top 9 quarterbacks in the nation, pro-style quarterbacks, are from the state of California. Would you like to guess how many of them are going to schools in the state of California?
I will say 0.
Mm-hmm. That was the easy question.
Mm-hmm.
The top pro-style quarterback signed by a school in the state of California is going to UCLA. Which state did he play his high school football in?
I will say Arizona.
Nope.
Washington.
Nope.
Ohio.
Nope. There is a
Alaska.
There is a person who played college quarterback in the Ohio State program right now,
mm-hmm.
who is from the state. New Hampshire.
Holy crap!
New Hampshire. So, that's Chip Kelly's home state.
That's true.
So it makes some sense that he would pull a guy from there. But I remember going back and looking. Ohio State has literally never in their history had a scholarship player from the state of New Hampshire, nor a walk-on. So, state of California football. How's that working out for you?
Well, and right now Clemson is making out, and we can talk about that later on. We've got some Clemson questions for listener questions, but like Ohio State, when Texas was down and Texas
mm-hmm.
A&M was down, they went and cleaned up in Texas. Everybody else is cleaning up in California right now because nobody can put a stop to it.
Yeah. And Ohio State did that in Georgia when mm-hmm. Georgia was kind of down at the end of the Mark Richt mm-hmm. era. You got Von Bell out of there. Mm-hmm. You got
Raekwon
McMillan out of there. And came pretty close to getting the defensive back for Georgia right now. Little dude.
Yeah.
Him too.
Almost got Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very common strategy in recruiting is, when you're going outside of your area, look for the spots where the hometown, the normal kind of pipeline schools mm-hmm. are down. Because nobody's signing with USC right now. USC is a disaster. USC is going to be a disaster next year. UCLA, Chip Kelly's recruiting has been a little weird the last couple of years. And
well, he's a guy. It was weird at the end at Oregon when he was getting DVDs sent to him of players who were, 3 classes back, and mm-hmm. there was some crazy stuff going on there. But I think he was also helped by the whole Oregon image,
mm-hmm.
and now the UCLA image is powder blue.
UCLA is and let's just fall face first down this rabbit hole. UCLA is one of those programs that is always on those sleeping giant lists and is like, but when have there was like the one season under Bob Toledo in the late 90s when they lost that hurricane makeup game against Miami that killed the national championship. Yeah.
They had J.J. Stokes, and he was good.
But it's like,
McNown.
Even when the rare Rose Bowls that they've made in the last 30 years, it's like, oh, it's a 9-3 UCLA team that won a 4-way tiebreaker to go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, and one of their football traditions, I don't know if it still is, but they would, one of their summer practices or spring practices, the tradition was everybody escaped. Ran, climbed over a wall to get out of practice. You'd show up for practice, and then you would skip practice. And one of the coaches, one of the more recent coaches, tried to get them to stop. It's no, how about instead of not practicing, we practice because we only have so many of these.
What if we try something different? You know how you fix that? You electrify the fence. That's.
You put alligators on the other side.
Yeah, that's
then the first 2 guys, they get over and they start screaming, and then it's well, I'm not climbing this wall. I don't know what's on the other side, but it sounds pretty bad.
The guys are on the other side of the wall are screaming, "Go Gators!" And then the coach gets mad because he thinks they're going to the transfer portal.
Portal.
Yep.
Yeah. Some of the other guys, the big jump was Mitchell Melton, who was this 3-star, also included outside linebacker. They had to get a bigger linebacker, so, just get him. Mitchell Melton, it's fine, from Maryland. And now he's up number 182 overall from number 496.
No, he moved up 496 spots. Yeah,
he was way down there.
So yeah, he was in the low 600s, and all of a sudden is now in the top 200. So, that is more than likely someone saw him and went, "Oh, we haven't seen him before. We've just seen the film." And you get him in camp, and it's like, "Oh, this guy's way faster than we thought he was."
Well, and they'll need that if he's going to play linebacker, because he's a pretty big dude, listed at 6'3", 235, and we'll see if he stays there.
He seems like he could very well be on that Cade Stover track. Because I
think he had a pretty good pass rushing year this season as a senior, so we'll see.
Mickey Marotti said that Cade Stover was 6'4", 225. It's like, oh well, he's gonna. That's not that's not going to stay linebacker size. Well, if you're already at 235, also you may not stay linebacker sized.
Mookie Cooper dropped, but he didn't play as a senior, so he had to sit out because of a transfer. So and only drop 26 spots in 24/7's rankings is, I guess, impressive.
And the last Ohio State wide receiver to not play his senior year was Chris Olave. So clearly that is not something that's necessarily going to prohibit you from having a good Ohio State career.
And unlike Chris Olave, Mookie Cooper has enrolled early, which, again, impressive what Olave was able to do as a true freshman, not enrolling early and impressing everybody from the first day of practice. And no, he didn't do anything until later on in the season. And even then it was still maybe 17 catches on the season or 12 catches. But,
did score 2 touchdowns and block a punt for a touchdown against Michigan.
Was that right?
Seems good. Speaking of guys enrolling early, Ohio State has more 5-star players already enrolled in the 2020 class than the entire rest of the Big Ten is signing this cycle combined. Ohio State has all 4 of these 5-star guys, Paris Johnson, Julian Fleming, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and CJ Stroud. They're already on campus, and the entire rest of the Big Ten only has 3. And I don't know if you read the thing I wrote. Okay, so you do. So I can't ask you the 3 Big Ten schools that signed a 5-star prospect.
Well, I didn't retain it.
Okay. Well, go ahead and tell me the 3 other Big Ten schools that signed a 5-star prospect.
Wisconsin.
Correct.
Penn State.
Correct.
And Northwestern.
Correct.
Boom.
Yes.
I did retain it. Look at me.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
The first 2 is okay, that kind of makes sense. And then it's Northwestern, I didn't know they had online classes. That's fascinating.
Or it's I didn't know Pat Fitzgerald's kid was that good.
Yeah. That he is the 27th, I think, overall player. All 3 of the other guys were kind of in that 23 to 27 kind of range. So Ohio State has the top 3 ranked players in the entire country. In the entire conference. Michigan had 0 top 100 recruits this year. That's once Jim Harbaugh gets his players on campus, really
0 top 100.
0 top. Their top ranked player was number 121, and they also had number 122.
Yeah, and their top was AJ Henning, perhaps, or he was before these final rankings. He was a receiver from Illinois, and he would have been below each of Ohio State's 4 receivers.
Yeah. They had I think a linebacker and someone else.
And we'll talk about Michigan on the Patreon bonus show that we're going to be doing, because Devin Bush was saying, the only what Michigan needs is just to come in with a better attitude. And you look at the recruiting rankings and you're like, no, they need to come in with better players as well, and they don't have that, and they're not. Penn State is moving beyond Michigan considerably at this point, and where is Michigan putting a stop to? Where are they picking up? And again, we can always go back to the Amazon Prime show when we watch it, and you look at this program, and you're thinking they look miserable. Who would want to play for them? You look at what Clemson is doing, you're like, that place looks fun. Ohio State, that place looks like it's got everything you need. And then Jim Harbaugh shows up at your door, and you're like, well, let's get this 20 minutes over with.
Yeah, Michigan does not have a slide. Michigan does not have a Big Ten championship game appearance. There's, the 40-year plan sale that they do, where it's, you can't think about the 4 years, you have to talk about the 40 years. Like, everyone's doing that now. That's not just Michigan and Notre Dame doing that. Ohio State can sell that too. Like, if you play football at Ohio State, you are pretty well set up to succeed in life after that. So no matter whether you're in the NFL or not. So that, it's harder and harder to make that sale the longer he's there and the results don't improve.
It is funny. Not funny. It's funny. I can't find a better word for it.
You want to do listener questions?
Let's do it.
All right. So first one from @Sporps Shouting. That is quite a name. That is a name and a half. Any possibility of starting spots for Taraji Mitchell or Kayvon Pope this year, or is Baron Browning going to move to middle linebacker and they'll call it a day?
Well, Baron was at middle linebacker last year. This is what spring is going to be about, and then fall camp even, because how much longer can you keep Taraji Mitchell and Kayvon Pope on the bench when Pope was productive last year when he had a chance? Mitchell was the backup for Malik Harrison, so maybe he's the next in line at will. But again, do you continue to do this whole thing with Baron Browning and Tuff Borland where they split? I think it worked out. I don't know that the whole Baron Browning thing that he still has to improve if he's going to be the guy. But again, there is no guy at middle linebacker. Tuff Borland is always going to be there. Do you go with him and Baron again and maybe get Taraji Mitchell over at the will? And I think we're going to see a lot of guys playing because these guys are all upperclassmen now. Dallas Gant as well. Mm-hmm. It would seem to be a waste not to let these guys play for their first 3 seasons on campus. Right.
Yeah. You don't want to bring in these super talented, highly ranked players and have them sit on the bench and just get 1 year out of them. I mean, that's not good necessarily for their development. That's not great for selling your program to future recruits. Like, well, you're going to sit on the bench for 3 years, but then you get to play 1 year.
Assuming we haven't over-recruited you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you're going to probably see maybe even more of a rotation there because you don't have, you have Browning and you have Browning and Borland in the middle and you've got Warner at the Sam. But, with Malik Harrison gone now, you're not returning all of your starters from last year. So you've got a little bit more wiggle room in terms of maybe, in the same way that they rotate 6 wide receivers to keep the wide receivers fresh. Maybe you're getting into, rotating 5 to 6 linebackers. Keep those linebackers fresh during the course of the game. Keep those linebackers fresh during the course of the season. And then if one of them gets hurt, it's not, oh crap, we have to replace a starter. It's, okay, we're going to put another starter in there and it's fine.
Yeah, I think there's enough guys there to play more now. Just as I think that middle linebacker rotation worked. There was really nobody to rotate with Malik Harrison. I don't know if Taraji Mitchell is ready, but Harrison's just a guy that you want on the field as much as possible. And we said the same thing could be said for Pete Werner because of everywhere they put him. So I think it's up to the younger guys to show that they deserve to be on the field, and that's what this spring is about.
Yep. Next one from Mobuck. This one just came to me. What is Clemson selling?
Tom?
They have won a whole bunch of national championships. They've won a couple national championships. They win the ACC every year. It's a nice campus.
Whatever.
It's you're in the South, so it's not snowing.
Shut up! I don't care about that.
It's they have had a good deal of success in the developing players of the NFL, especially. I think when you look at Clemson, it's like, well, what are they selling? Well, look at where they're bringing in these great recruits. Like the 2020 class is loaded at defensive line. Why is the 2020 class loaded at defensive line? Because all those kids saw all 4 defensive linemen from last year get drafted in the first or second round. I think all 4 of them went first, second, maybe third round. In the same way, what's Larry Johnson selling? Well, Larry Johnson is selling, hey, if you come here as a highly talented player, you're going to get developed. And then you're going to be the number 1 or number 2 overall pick in the draft. This is going to be potentially twice in 3 years that Larry Johnson has, twice in 2 years that Larry Johnson has the number 2 overall player in the country as one of his pass rushers. So what is Larry Johnson selling? Well, come here, play 3 years, and then go get a $30 million NFL contract. And by the way, this is a fun place to play because you win a whole bunch of football games and it's a nice place to go to school and it's a fun city. And I mean, Clemson is selling very, very much the same, the same kinds of things that Ohio State is.
Yeah. And there's always also a school that is in vogue, that is popular at the time. And I'm wondering if now Alabama has kind of taken a back seat to Clemson, perhaps to Ohio State, where they might be playing catch up for a while. And we'll say that, but I believe, did they have the number one class?
That's why I'm just pulling that up right now. You keep talking, and then I'm going to call you an idiot.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying I'm an idiot because I would never.
Number one class in the nation,
exactly.
2020.
But it's like you don't hear as much talk about Alabama, but then they just crank it out, and perhaps you set your watch to it. But how long has it been since they've won a national title? I mean, it's been a pretty long time, 2 years?
Literally years.
So we'll see if Ryan Day can go ahead and kill the Alabama Crimson Tide almost like Urban Meyer did.
And for the class of 2021, Clemson and Ohio State both have 9 commits. The total points for the class on 247 Sports, 203.62 for Clemson and 203.40 for Ohio State. Mm-hmm. They're number 1 and number 2. The number 3 team in the country is Notre Dame, and they have 168 points. So Ohio State and Clemson are separated by less than a quarter of a point and 35 points ahead of anyone else in the country. So, what does Ohio State have to do to keep up with Clemson? I mean, look at the numbers, and they're doing just fine.
Well, here's the other thing. And that's the next question. How do we overtake Clemson from Purgatory Buck? I mean, Ohio State, as I've said, wins that Fiesta Bowl 7 out of 10 times. Mm-hmm. They were the better team. They made more mistakes. So they just continue to do what you're doing, mm-hmm. and Clemson can do what they're doing, and then you'll see, because that's not going to be the last time these two teams play.
No.
Now, I would expect them to play again this coming season, and sure, maybe Trevor Lawrence at his best beats an Ohio State defense that isn't as good as it was in 2019, and then you'll see. But I think it just fluctuates, and it also depends on how good is your quarterback. And maybe we'll see who truly has the best program when both Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are gone, and now you're starting a couple of young guys, and then it starts all over again.
Yeah, when they're then the year after that the one has the number 1 pro-style quarterback, and the other has the number 2 pro-style quarterback. Guess what Ohio State and Clemson have right now? The number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks from their respective, from the same class. I mean, same thing.
So how do you overtake Clemson? Don't screw up.
You make literally one of about a dozen different plays, and you have overtaken them, and ta-da. Yeah. Next one from @ITCJV. Was Justin Aaron's time one-off or unlikely to happen again due to defensive limitations?
He was 4 of 5 from 3, scored 12 points. Not a career high. He had a career high 29 last year when he went off again, or for the first time. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a one-off. They need him to stretch the floor, to open up things for everybody else. And they also need somebody who can shoot. And he came into that game shooting like 30% from 3, but everybody knows he can shoot. It's just a matter of him making them. And so he made some, and they talk about his defensive lapses, and yeah, that's a real thing. But if you're playing teams like Northwestern who don't score a lot, mm-hmm. then you can afford some lapses. Plus, it's not like everybody else is locking down their guys for the Buckeyes right now. Like the Buckeyes as a whole are not playing great defensively, so what's one more guy who doesn't play well defensively?
Yeah. There are too many guys who are playing too well that we can't take them off the floor has not been the issue for Ohio State basketball this calendar year.
You're correct.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that having someone, if he could be that guy consistently, and we haven't seen it consistently out of him, but if he could be that guy consistently, like having that kind of like John Diebler 3-point guy, like that would really be a game changer. Because I mean, the offense has been just putrid for the last month. And having just someone who can come off the bench and just, be a little instant injection of offense, and just, he doesn't have to score 30 points every game, but if he can score, knock down, go 3 from 5 or 3 for 6 from 3, then great. Then that's just that sort of shot of offense you need that makes it so you're not going 8 minutes without scoring a point from the field.
Yeah, and just putting a little bit of fear in the defense. Like, okay, we have to defend that guy. Because you don't necessarily think that of, like, Luther Muhammad or, a lot of these other guys where you're like, well, you can be a little slow on getting out to him. You really can't be with him because, for one, he's got a quick release, and for two, he is a good shooter, a better shooter than CJ Walker or DJ Carton, where you have to get out on him. And I think that maybe that forces the defense to respect him more. And like I said, it opens up the floor for everybody else.
Next one from @Zalexan. Who do you expect to succeed Fields, Stroud or Miller? Stroud is a late addition, though undeniably elite. But Day picked Miller a long time ago. Wonder who gets the nod.
Yeah, Tom. This is one of the things I want to watch in spring, and it's going to be so jotted down and under a microscope from the people who get to watch spring ball, like when we're invited. Do you remember when it was Dwayne? I don't even remember which quarterback battle it was. I assume it was Dwayne and Joe, where Dwayne started these reps, then Joe started these reps, and I wonder, will they fluctuate between, all right, now you're third, now you're fourth, now you're third, now you're fourth. I assume it's going to be Gunnar Hoke getting the backup reps because you've got to get him ready. But if one guy stays third or one guy stays fourth, then they get labeled like, okay, CJ Stroud is ahead of Jack Miller. And I don't think Ryan Day or Corey Dennis will want to get that started any sooner than they need to.
No, and there's no reason to, because those are not guys who are going to be coming out of spring probably as the clear number two. I mean, Gunnar Hoke, I would assume, enters the spring as the clear number two, and the two true freshmen are going to be, 3 and 3A. And last year, every time we watched practice, Justin Fields was taking first team reps, and it's like, all right, so they're not even pretending that there's a quarterback competition here. I don't expect that with those guys, just because you don't know what you have yet. And Jack Miller, dropped down the rankings a little bit, but he was hurt. There's a reason that Jack Miller fell down the rankings. It was not just, he just didn't play well and he was playing fine and he was healthy. He didn't play well. It was like, no, he was hurt and he missed a whole bunch of time. And so I do expect to see a pretty good rotation of those guys. What will be interesting to me is, by the end of spring, has one of the young guys maybe overtaken Gunnar Hoke? And that's possible. But I also think that they're going to want to keep Gunnar Hoke. If there's a question, you're probably going to keep Gunnar Hoke number two just to have the veteran guy there. Because, how many times have we heard, well, it takes a year to learn this offense.
Right.
So even guys coming in January, it's going to take them a while to kind of get the grasp of the whole college thing, and also the offense, and also, just being around the program and all that, all the other stuff you've got to do and sort of figure out your first year. I don't know that they're going to be in a rush to have one of those guys go and take over as the number two. It would not surprise me if that happened during the course of the year. As far as 2021, whoever moves ahead this year, sure, that's fine. But you got to remember they have a very, very good quarterback prospect coming in 2021 as well, Kyle McCord, out of Philadelphia. He is currently ranked the number 33 player overall and number 5 pro style quarterback, and he's the one who Michigan's 2021 quarterback is ranked ahead of him. But Ryan Day picked him. So, that should tell you that he views Kyle McCord as, a potential difference maker down the line where, in 2022, if one of the 2020 guys has transferred, Kyle McCord is very much in that line to potentially win that starting job.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next one from @Joe_Keebler. Taco Bell mysteriously getting rid of the Reaper Ranch double stack. I don't know what this means.
You haven't had the double stack, the $1 double stack tacos from Taco Bell?
I have not.
You being a Taco Bell guy, have not had the $1, 3 different kinds of double stack tacos.
I'm trying to eat a little better this year, so I have not been to Taco Bell in this calendar year.
So one of the tacos, one of them is it's got some Reaper sauce or whatever, and that's not my scene, so I haven't had it. And so I'm guessing, like me, people are like, I don't need like Reaper peppers from Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I already know things could get bad. I don't need Reaper added into that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm comfortable with what Taco Bell may do to me because I've experienced this before.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't need added into this situation is
flames.
The sauce equivalent of a scythe. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is correct. I do not need that. I will just stick with some nacho cheese, please.
We'll have to get our photographer Dan Harker, who is.
I don't think people are supposed to know that, though.
Well, no, just that he eats like the hottest possible food at all times.
True.
And we'll constantly go into restaurants and say, give me the hottest, and like the manager comes over and warns him, no, you don't want to do that. He's like, yes, I do. I assure you, sir, I will sign the release. So we'll have to get Dan to test out.
They've taken it off, apparently, of the menu, so we've missed our opportunity.
Well, they'll bring it back. It's Taco Bell. Everything comes back.
That's true.
Next one from @Lowell317. Coach Combs, great coach or greatest coach? Discuss. # So freaking happy he's back. I just can't wait. Go Buckeyes. That's a pretty good Kerry Combs hashtag that
That's pretty good.
Lowell317 used there.
Clearly a big fan.
As far as great coach or greatest coach, let's see how the play calling goes this year.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's a great coach, but let's see how he is as a
what you're getting from him as a defensive backs coach, because he was there when Ohio State came into that 2016 season. Like, well, there's some question marks at defensive back, and then they all won it in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. So
never mind.
Turns out it's okay. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
So, as far as the positional coach stuff, yes, great coach, not a question. Greatest coach, if the results stay anywhere in the neighborhood of the 2019 Buckeyes this year, as far as like overall defense, then we can have that greatest coach discussion. We just, not enough information to make that call yet. At WJRP Baseball. Thoughts on the Big Ten, Pac-12, Big 12, and AAC champs breaking away from the college football playoff and starting their own playoffs airing on Fox?
Tom, I don't think you can exist successfully in college football and do it away from ESPN. And it's an impossibility because there's already so much money tied in that you would have separate entities of big-time college football.
Yeah, you're not going to see that split just because there's simply too much money in it right now in the current system. I don't want to imply that financial considerations are ruling the purity of amateur athletics, but yeah, there's too much money. You're not going to split up the top level. It's something that could happen at some point, would actually be pretty interesting, is if the group of 5 level schools split off. Now, that may, if they stayed at 4 with the existing system for the next 20 years, you would see that at some point. I think we're probably both of the mind that playoff expansion is coming, and with it, probably a guaranteed bid to one of the group of 5 teams. And then they have a seat at the table, and then they're probably making a little bit more money, and then there's maybe less of a rush to do that. But I mean, if the existing system stayed as it is for the foreseeable future, for the next 10 years, 20 years,
right,
then yeah, I would, if I was them, think very seriously about it. Just, split, in the same way that 1A and 1AA are different divisions, just make a 1 AAA and do it that way.
Yeah, there's no way, if you said the CFP comes down and we're going to stick with 4 through 2034. The next day, the group of 5 should be talking about, okay, well, how do we let's get our own championship going. It would generate money because we are not going to be in this loop. And it would generate more money than the one team that gets into the New Year's Six. Mm-hmm. And it would provide more, obviously revenue, but there'd just be more games.
Yeah.
So there'd be more inventory to sell and for ads, and I think it would be interesting. It would be better than the Avocado Bowl between Tulsa and Tulane.
Well, then you get into some of the decisions about schools moving between divisions as well. Because, you had Appalachian State, which is winning national championships at one level, and then they move up to the FBS, and now it's like, oh, and now we're going to the Camellia Bowl. Like, that's less fulfilling than winning the national championship. So, if they do have a guaranteed seat at the table in the playoff, with, say it's an 8-team playoff and the group of 5 gets guaranteed one team in, then everyone comes into the year with at least a realistic path to win the national championship. Is Appalachian State or Georgia Southern going to do that? Boise State? Probably not. You're probably not going to run through 3 Power 5 teams in a row. But you could. It is possible for you to do it. Right now, any MAC school, there is literally no possible way a MAC school could make the college football playoff. So you are starting the year with the best possible season you could have is win the MAC and go win your bowl game. And, if we're going to pretend these teams are all on the same level, everyone should have an actual path to win the whole championship.
Right, because Ohio University, Central Michigan, they aren't FBS if Ohio State is FBS. They're not on the same level because they don't have the same opportunity. So why not another level where you can call those teams national? They can play for a national championship, and I don't even want to hear the group of 5 championship. Just call it a national championship with their own division. There's no reason like FBS plays or will play FCS teams, so it's not like you would have to stop scheduling these group of 5 teams because you still schedule FCS teams, and they'll still have the same respect that they do now. So it's not like you drop them down a level. Now they're like, they're still very capable of beating you. And if you already think of them as, then it's not going to change your opinion anyway,
Yeah. And the other way this could come to pass is if at some point you do get the long rumored shift to like 4 16-team super conferences, and then that becomes the top level of the sport, and then they are no longer invited to the party. Like, that's the other way that can happen. And then you form your own separate level, and you have your own national championship just like FCS does. And I'm sure that most people are not sitting there watching every game of the FCS playoffs, but those are really exciting, fun games, and they are a big freaking deal to people who go to those schools and who are fans of those schools. Something has to change there with a group of 5. What's going to change is they're going to get a seat at the table in the 8-team playoff, and that's, probably coming up in the next couple of years. But, one way or the other, that has to change because the current system is very clearly, they nominally have an opportunity to play for the championship, but very clearly that is not going to happen.
Yes, their seat at their table, their reward will be, congratulations, now you get to play at Clemson for the first round of the playoffs.
Have fun storming the castle. At iPat1, does Ryan Day change the offense to get more of these stud wide receivers on the field at the same time? Geez, what Mike Leach could do with this talent.
Tom, why don't you take that second part?
Well, yes. Mike Leach has a ceiling, I think, to what he does. And, you look at Mike Leach has very clearly not had Ohio State level talent. But Mike Leach also is, I think, a little bit overly strict in his beliefs. There's a word for that, and I'm not coming up with it right now. But he's a little bit
stubborn.
Too, well, stubborn's a good word for it. But like, if you ever listen to Jimmy Lake, the now Washington head coach, but former Washington defensive coordinator, talk after the Apple Cup, every year, Washington just absolutely curb stomps Washington State. And he says, well, they just do the same thing every year, so we don't need to, we know, and we know how to stop it, so but Leach has not changed that. Now, going to the SEC, like, you're going to raise the floor of your program by bringing him into that type of program, like a Mississippi State or a Washington State or a Texas Tech, where you're out in the middle of nowhere and historically not a very good program. Like, you're going to raise the floor there, and you're going to go from being a 4-8 team to an 8-4 team. But you never see Leach get teams to 12-0. Like, he's never won a conference. He's never actually won a conference championship, even when he had Michael Crabtree in the Big 12. Like, they beat Texas. They got real close, but then he didn't win it. And, sure, with better talent, yeah, the floor probably rises a little more and the ceiling probably raises a little more. But, look at who had more yards per play last year. Look at who had more points per game last year. It's Ohio State. I don't think there's a real issue with Ohio State's offensive scheme or play calling.
No, and the Leach thing, that offense, yeah, they throw it a lot, but it's 6 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards. Is that really what you want to see from, you throw to Jackson Smith and Jigba a 4-yard out, and then he's running out of bounds. When you see what Ohio State does with their passing game, where they've got routes on routes down the field, and I think that's the same with LSU. I prefer down the field, or at least making that so it's an option. So much of Texas Tech's passing game or the Mike Leach passing game is just dink and dunk, and that you get a sack on first down or second down, and now you're third and long. It's like, well, third and down isn't really our game. It's almost like triple option,
And Mike Leach will run 4 verts, and then you will get down the field sometimes, but that's not. This is not the run and shoot. That's the run and shoot and the air raid are different offenses.
There's no run.
You can look at them and just go, well, these are both very pass heavy offenses. This is basically the same. Like, no, it's not. They're not really the same thing. And you'll see that if you really want to look at that, watch Washington State the next couple of years, because they're going from Mike Leach, who's an air raid guy, to Nick Rolovich, who, if you were a late night Hawaii football junkie like I am, Rolovich is more of like the classic run and shoot kind of guy. And, you'll have, Cole McDonald, my goodness, Hawaii's quarterback last year, had games where he would throw like 4 or 5 touchdowns and also 4 interceptions. Like, that is a, it's a similar offense, but schematically it's not the same. And you'll see some changes with Washington State football if you really want to watch Washington State football this year. But that's, by the way, that was a fantastic hire. Like, that was a great hire by Pat Chun, the AD there.
And that goes back to having him as a fantasy quarterback in college when I played in the college fantasy leagues, when he was at Hawaii as a player, and they threw all over the place with June Jones, which is, that's the whole tree there. Did you see, like, last week, Rolovich tweeted out to like Washington State fans, like, hey, where are you guys hanging out tonight? I want to swing on by. So he would swing by, a few bars, couple bars, pick up some tabs, and just hang out with fans. And it's like, that's him. That's who he is. He's an interesting dude at a place where, you can do that. You can't really do it at Ohio State because you might just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But you can certainly do that at a place in Pullman, for crying out loud.
Yeah, he's interesting because he and Leach, in the same way that they're both pass-heavy offenses but different schemes, they're both like funny, quirky guys but different guys.
Yeah.
Like Rolovich is, there's a pretty famous story about Rolovich bringing a Britney Spears impersonator to Mountain West Media Days a couple years ago. I think he had a fortune teller one year. Like, he just does stuff, and it's just kind of like funny stuff, and there's not like some crazy deeper meaning, but it's just like, hey, here's some attention, and it's kind of fun. And like Leach does it with, kind of weird answers about, whatever, but they are similar enough guys, but like just with like a 90-degree twist to it. So yeah, they're just a bunch of random college football coaches that I will follow just because I just enjoy watching their programs from afar. I have always enjoyed Leach going back to the Texas Tech days. I have followed Rolovich on Twitter for a number of years because he's just kind of a fun, different kind of guy. And yeah, I don't know if that would play at Ohio State, but I think that's going to be a real good hire at Washington State.
Imagine Day saying, hey, I'm going to be at the varsity club tonight. Let's hang out. There's not enough room in there.
Yeah, Chris Holtman has done that with like sandwiches at Chick-fil-A or whatever it is at lunchtime. But yeah, that's not buying drinks at the VC.
I don't know what Mississippi State's situation is at quarterback and receiver. Like, if they have competent players there. I would expect Mississippi State to have some success initially because this is all new, kind of new for some of the defense. Although, how new is it with LSU? They threw the ball all over the place. So it's not like he's bringing in this new thing like Joe Tiller did to the Big Ten. So we have seen the passing game in the SEC. So we'll see how it works for him. That last part, the first part, does Ryan Day change the offense? No, I mean, they're going to throw the ball more this year. So they rotate receivers. They get as many guys involved as they can. There's just no need to put necessarily 4 of them out there on the field at a time because you still want to be able to run the ball. They still like their tight end. They like their tight ends. That's another thing that's going to impact how many receivers we see because you got Jeremy Ruckert and Luke Farrell, and they like them both together. And so you just kind of have to deal with that if you're a fan of the receivers.
Well, and receiver is just not a spot where you're going to see guys play a ton early as true freshmen. Like it's a hard place to get on the field. Running back, you can do it. If you got a stud true freshman running back, you can be a Maurice Claret or a J.K. Dobbins. Garrett Wilson was the stud wide receiver. Chris Olave was 2 years ago. And you really didn't see much of them except for garbage time. You didn't see them until minimally halfway through the season. You think, oh, Garrett Wilson had that big touchdown against Nebraska. Yeah, well, the score was like 38-0 at that point. So, he was not playing, he was not the guy who they were throwing the ball to on the first drive of the game against Michigan State or whatever. So yeah, those guys, 1 or 2 of them will break through and be someone who's catching touchdown passes late in the year. But realistically, that's a 2021 thing probably.
Yep.
Next one from Randy H. Several openings on the coaching staff under assistants, promoting from within or going outside.
Well, in terms of like all of the assistant coaches, I believe all of them have like an assistant, so there's only so much from within you can do when these are guys like sort of not quite the bottom of the totem pole, but very near it. And it's just watching that truck drive over the meeting there. But it's hard there's only so many guys on the staff that are, interns or QC guys where you can bump them up. So, did you see Keenan Bailey, who was the assistant receivers coach? His Twitter bio now says assistant quarterbacks coach, having I assume taken over for Corey Dennis. I checked with OSU and they're like, spokesman's like, I have no idea what's going on there. And so that's one way they move from, position to position. And it's also about getting these guys more well-rounded for their next job. And then there are so many connections made throughout. Like we saw Trey Holtz left, who was the assistant tight ends coach at Ohio State this past season, to go coach with his dad at Louisiana Tech. And there's it's the fraternity of coaches where it's like, well, I've got my son, can he come over and be with you? And then, this is one of my GAs that I've had for, like Ryan Day was an Urban Meyer GA back in 2005. Fast forward a dozen years, and now he's the offensive coordinator because you have all of these connections that maintain. Now, in terms of the lower levels, I mean, it's harder to have those connections because these are all beginning guys.
Right. And you have not, well-rounded was a good way to put it. Like you want to have guys who have been in a couple different places. You don't want to solely promote from within. Like Trey Holt, there was another guy, Louis Adazio, who was one of the QC guys a couple of years ago, who left to go be the tight ends coach at Bowling Green last year, and then left there because his dad, Steve Adazio, took the head coaching job at Colorado State. So now he's, I think, the tight ends coach at Colorado State. And then, you work under different guys, you work in different systems, you work in different program environments, but also like offensive systems. You learn, you kind of take pieces from each of your things, and then that shapes you much better to be able to, you are not a one-trick pony. You are not the Mike Leach who can just do it this one way and that's it. And that makes you a better assistant, 5-10 years down the road. So, yeah, I mean, my assumption is if they have someone internally they really, really like, they'll take someone internally. But, there is value to, hey, someone off of, the LSU staff last year, like someone who was sitting in all those meetings last year, like that would be interesting to know, in the same way that coaches will like visit other programs to, just kind of, shoot the breeze during the off season and kind of share ideas on different schematic stuff. Like hiring someone from another program that's not always a bad move. But when you're bringing someone in internally, you know who that person is. Yeah. There are not going to be any surprises there. So, it's really, this is an extremely boring answer, but it's a case-by-case basis.
By the way, did you see Kenny Guyton was hired as the receivers coach at Colorado State?
I did see that. Yeah, that he's someone who I would just bet Kenny Guyton ends up back at Ohio State at some point.
At some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the receivers coach position is going to be filled at Ohio State for the foreseeable future, but he is someone who, Corey Dennis, the current Ohio State quarterbacks coach, played wide receiver in college, was a high school quarterback, but coached both wide receivers and quarterbacks. So that is not the fact that Kenny Guyton is a quarterbacks coach right now is not prohibitive that he could, the wide receivers coach right now does not prohibit him from being a quarterbacks coach in the future.
And we just mentioned Keenan Bailey. If he has indeed moved from receiver to quarterback, there's which moves us nicely into this next question, Tom.
Speaking of former Ohio State quarterbacks, at Jared 712-69443, will JT Barrett ever hang up the pads and get into coaching, and would he be any good at it?
This is interesting to me because we have asked JT Barrett this before, and he was adamant, like, no, because I like to sleep. I like sleeping in. I don't ever want to coach. Mm-hmm. And the reason he was asked that is because Urban Meyer said, I am trying to get him into coaching. Mm-hmm. He will be a great coach. I want him to coach. We need more people like him in coaching. And JT was like, nah, man, I like to sleep. And so you can totally respect that. But, Brian Hartline never expected to get into coaching, and then it came as a calling to him, he says. Mm-hmm. So maybe that same thing happens to JT Barrett, and maybe they'll move the schedule around for him. Like, okay, we won't start workouts until 10:30 in the morning.
6 a.m. workouts are now.
No more.
2 in the afternoon.
Exactly. You got the entire PM. You don't need to do everything in the AM. You've got the PM.
And, he's someone who is not going to make $50 million as an NFL quarterback. He's probably going to hang around the NFL for a few more years. And I don't remember if he was he on the active roster this year or the practice squad?
Not active, but somewhere in that area where you're still getting a paycheck.
Well, yeah, he's been drawing an NFL paycheck, but he's not making, $5 million a year. He will at some point need to get another job when his career is over. He's not going to have, go just retire and live on an island money coming out of his NFL career.
I assume he'll do what other Ohio State football players do, either get a radio show or just go into the business world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, that's possible, but you could also be in the business world and go, turns out selling insurance isn't that fun. So maybe coaching football will be fun, and then maybe you do have a calling. Yeah. I mean, and Brian Hartline is someone who made a whole lot more money than JT Barrett probably is going to in the NFL. And, Urban Meyer, when he brought Brian Hartline, it was kind of like, all right, let's see if this guy really wants to do it. Like, you can come in and be a volunteer for a year or a grad assistant for a year or whatever and see, and maybe it's for you and maybe it isn't. And, if the hours are not for you, then okay, then you can go sell insurance or go have a radio show or whatever you want to do. But, JT didn't particularly love talking to the media either, so I don't know if he'd want to be a radio
That's
guy.
True. You just wonder, these guys, like, do you want to recruit? The hours are immense in college, and the different things you have to do are not for everyone. And, like you said, I think he's talking about, I don't like setting an alarm. Mm-hmm. I think was his exact answer, which gives you an idea of his preference for sleeping in. So,
But
then his last year, he was online courses. Like
that's true.
You know, maybe an online course as a fifth year senior.
Yeah. But if he did it, I could see him being someone who could, I mean, he's got the personality of the leader.
Yeah.
He has the experience. He has, you know, he didn't like talking to us, but he did a good job talking to us. Like, he always came away impressed after talking to JT Barrett, which, you know, if you can do that, you can probably sell in the living room with the parents.
Yeah.
And so I think if he chose to do it, I think he could be a pretty good college coach. But yeah, I remember that same conversation with him and coming away going, that's too bad, because I think he would be good at it, but he just, you know,
you're exactly
at
right.
that time did not want to do it.
That's how I came. It was like, yeah, that's too bad. And I think, Tom, anytime you can extend or have a portion of the Tim Beck coaching tree, you should do it.
Don't eat the fruit off of that tree.
That's fittingly, that's the last question of the show. Tom, do you have anything else to add?
No, we are also recording a Patreon bonus show today. So if you were interested in listening to that, we're going to be talking some Michigan, talking some of the kind of a preview of the spring and some of the freshmen that are in and all of that. So we will have that on Patreon. You can sign up at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly. And we have some shows coming up with some of our higher level supporters who get to choose a topic. So we'll have some of those coming up. So just because it's the off season doesn't mean we're really slowing down a whole lot.
Yeah, and then next week's show will be our recap of signing day, which we will be talking to Ryan Day. We will be talking to Corey Dennis and Kerry Combs, and then possibly up to 14 early enrollees. Whoever doesn't have class at that moment, we will be talking to. So there is going to be a loaded show on Wednesday that we won't have time to talk about everything we want to talk about.
Yeah, we may split next week's show into two separate shows or something if we go long enough. But.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot going on, and I'm looking forward to it because it's always interesting. It's our first chance to talk to the incoming freshmen, and it's right away which guys are the good talkers or who are going to be like team spokesmen down the road, and which guys are the quiet ones. And it's always fun to, well, this guy, he's crazy. Mm-hmm. he's outgoing, and you get your first glimpses of all the new guys. So it'll be fun, and we will talk to that'll be the next week's show. So, but make sure to check out the rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network. As you know, Mondays and Fridays it's the Buckeye Sleepcast. On Tuesdays it's Silver Bullets, and Wednesdays for right now it's us as we have planned and as we have set forth. And then also check out the content at theozone.net right now. There's tons of stuff to read, so go do that. And we thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
We could steal a car and leave tonight. Midnight, porch light. I had to see you 'cause I know things just haven't been right. This feeling's getting stronger. I can't take it anymore. a goodbye kiss, but I could never have imagined this. Say you will, now say you will. Oh yeah. Say you will, now say you will. Say you will, now say you will. If you tell me that Des Moines' all